The gunshot still echoed in Katherine Lawson's ears as her boots pounded against the hardened earth, her lungs burning with each ragged breath she dragged into her chest. Behind her, the oil lamps of Tascosa, Texas flickered like dying stars, growing smaller with every desperate stride she took into the vast emptiness of the prairie. She had witnessed something she should not have seen, and now 3 men wanted her dead before sunrise. The night air bit at her face as she ran, her cotton dress catching on patches of scrub brush that tore at the fabric. She had no horse, no weapon, nothing but the terror propelling her forward and the knowledge that if those men caught her, they would put a bullet through her skull just as they had done to the banker outside the saloon. She had been walking past when it happened, had seen the flash of gunpowder, had locked eyes with the killer for one eternal second before her survival instincts kicked in, and she bolted. Her foot caught on something unseen and she stumbled, catching herself with her palms against the rough ground. The darkness was absolute out here, the moon hidden behind thick clouds that promised rain. Katherine pushed herself up, her hands stinging, and tried to orient herself. She had no idea which direction she was heading, only that it was away from the men who wanted her silence guaranteed with violence. "Keep running, girl," she whispered to herself, her voice shaking. "Just keep running." But exhaustion was already pulling at her limbs. She had been working double shifts at the boarding house for weeks, and her body had no reserves left to draw from. The prairie stretched endlessly in all directions, and she realized with growing horror that she was utterly lost. The darkness was so complete she could barely see her own hands in front of her face. Then she heard it. The sound of hoofbeats, distant but unmistakable, coming from the direction of town. They were following her trail. They would catch her within minutes, and then everything would end in this godless wilderness. Katherine's breath came in panicked gasps now as she forced her trembling legs to move faster. She could not die like this. At 22 years old, she had barely lived. She had come to Texas from Missouri 3 years ago after her parents died of influenza, hoping to build a new life for herself. She had worked honest jobs, saved her money, dreamed of perhaps opening a dress shop one day. And now it would all end because she had been in the wrong place at the wrong moment. The hoofbeats grew louder. She could hear men's voices now, rough and determined. They were spreading out, trying to cut off any escape route. Katherine's foot caught again, and this time she went down hard. The wind knocked from her lungs. She lay there for a moment, stunned, tasting dirt and blood where she had bitten her tongue. "I saw something over there," a voice called out, much too close. Katherine scrambled to her feet, but her sense of direction was completely gone now. She staggered forward, arms outstretched, and then suddenly there was a hand clamping over her mouth and an arm around her waist, pulling her backward. She tried to scream, tried to fight, but the grip was iron strong. "Quiet," a low voice whispered urgently in her ear. "If you trust me, I can guide you, but you have to stay absolutely silent." Katherine's heart hammered against her ribs. This was a new voice, not one of the men from town. The hand over her mouth gentled slightly, and she realized that whoever held her was not trying to hurt her but to keep her quiet. She forced herself to stop struggling, to go limp in the stranger's grasp. "Good," the voice whispered. "Now come with me, slow and careful." The arm around her waist released, but the hand took hers instead, large and calloused and surprisingly warm. Katherine let herself be led through the darkness, her free hand outstretched to avoid obstacles. Behind them, the voices of her pursuers grew more frustrated. "She cannot have gone far," one of them snarled. "Spread out more. Check every gully." The stranger led her in what seemed like a zigzag pattern, sometimes stopping completely while they pressed themselves flat against the ground. Katherine could feel her guide's steady breathing, could smell leather and horse and something else, maybe sage or tobacco. Whoever this person was, they moved through the darkness with absolute confidence, as if they could see in the pitch black. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, they reached a small depression in the land, almost invisible in the darkness. The stranger finally released her hand, and she heard the soft sounds of him moving around, doing something she could not identify. "We will wait here until they give up," he whispered. "They will not find us if you stay quiet." Katherine's eyes had adjusted enough that she could make out a shape, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like a wide-brimmed hat. A cowboy, then. The kind of man who worked the vast ranches that surrounded Tascosa, driving cattle and living rough under the stars. "Who are you?" she whispered back, her voice barely audible. "Someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time," he replied. "I saw you running. Saw those men following with guns drawn, figured you needed help." "They will kill me if they find me," Katherine said, and she hated how her voice shook with fear. "I saw them murder someone. I saw their faces." "I know," the stranger said quietly. "I saw it too. John Mackey, the banker. Shot down in cold blood by Wade Garrett and his brothers." Katherine's breath caught. "You know them." "Everyone knows the Garretts. They have been terrorizing this territory for 2 years, but the law cannot touch them. Too many people are scared to testify." There was a pause, and then he added, "My name is Avery Keaton. I work for the Rockingham Ranch about 15 miles north of here." "Katherine Lawson," she whispered back. "I work at the boarding house in town. Worked there, I mean. I cannot ever go back now, can I?" "Not until the Garretts are dealt with, no," Avery said honestly. "But we will figure something out. First, we need to get you somewhere safe." They fell silent as the sound of hoofbeats passed nearby. Katherine pressed herself against the earth, hardly daring to breathe. She could hear the Garrett brothers calling to each other, their frustration evident in their raised voices. "This is pointless," one of them finally said. "She is probably dead already. Fell and broke her neck in the dark, most likely. We will come back at first light and find her body." "Better be right about that," another voice growled. "She saw everything." "Then it is a good thing she ran out into the plains with no water, no horse, no nothing," the first voice replied. "The sun will finish what we started. Come on, let us get back to town." The hoofbeats gradually faded away, heading back toward the distant lights of Tascosa. Katherine remained frozen, hardly believing they were leaving. Beside her, Avery waited several more minutes before he finally moved. "They are gone," he said quietly. "But they will be back at dawn to search for your body. We need to be far from here by then." "It must be the middle of the night," Katherine said, sitting up slowly. Her entire body ached from running and falling. "How will we travel in this darkness?" "I have my horse tied up about 100 yards from here," Avery said. "And I know this land like the back of my hand. I have been riding these plains since I was a boy." He paused, and she sensed him turning toward her. "The question is, do you trust me enough to come with me? I can take you to the Rockingham. My boss, Sam Mitchell, is a good man. He will help." Katherine considered her options, which were almost non-existent. She could try to make it on her own, but she would be dead of thirst or exposure within a day. She could try to get back to town, but the Garretts would find her immediately. Or she could trust this stranger who had already saved her life once. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. "You could have just ridden on. This is not your problem." Avery was quiet for a moment. "I was in town picking up supplies. I saw the whole thing happen. Saw Mackey get shot, saw you witness it, saw the Garretts spot you. I could not just ride away and let them kill an innocent woman." What kind of man would that make me?" There was something in his voice, a simple honesty that made Katherine want to trust him. She had spent 3 years in Tascosa learning to read people, learning which men to avoid and which ones were decent. This Avery Keaton sounded like one of the decent ones. "All right," she said quietly. "I will come with you, and thank you for saving my life." "Thank me when we get you somewhere safe," Avery replied. "Come on, stay close to me and step where I step." He took her hand again and led her through the darkness. Katherine marveled at how sure his movements were, never hesitating, never stumbling. He must have extraordinary night vision, or else he truly did know every inch of this land. They reached his horse, a large animal that huffed softly when they approached. Avery murmured something soothing to it and then turned to Katherine. "Have you ridden before?" he asked. "Only a few times," Katherine admitted. "I am not very good at it." "That is all right. You will ride in front of me. I will hold the reins and make sure you do not fall." His voice was matter-of-fact, professional. "The saddle might not be comfortable for a long ride, but it is better than walking." He helped her mount first, his hands firm on her waist as he lifted her up with surprising ease. She settled onto the saddle sideways, since her dress made riding astride nearly impossible. And then Avery swung up behind her with practiced grace. His arms came around her to take the reins, and Katherine found herself enclosed in his presence, surrounded by the scent of leather and the solid warmth of his body. "Hold on to the saddle horn," he instructed. "We will go slow until the moon comes out." They started moving through the darkness, the horse picking its way carefully across the uneven ground. Katherine gripped the saddle horn with both hands, acutely aware of how close Avery was, how his chest pressed against her back with every stride the horse took. Under different circumstances, she would have been mortified by such proximity to a strange man, but tonight that solid presence was the only thing standing between her and death. "How far is the ranch?" she asked after a while. "About 4 hours at this pace," Avery replied. "Maybe less if the clouds clear and we can move faster." "Are you all right? Not too uncomfortable?" "I am fine," Katherine lied. Her legs were already cramping from the awkward position and her back ached from her falls. But she was alive, and that was what mattered. They rode in silence for a while. Gradually, the clouds began to thin and break apart, allowing moonlight to filter through. The landscape emerged from the darkness, revealing endless rolling plains dotted with scrub brush and the occasional twisted tree. It was beautiful in a stark, lonely way. "You said you saw the shooting too," Katherine said eventually. "Will they not come after you as well?" "They did not see me," Avery said. "I was across the street loading my horse. I saw it all, but I was in shadow. They never knew I was there." "So you could have just left," Katherine said slowly. "You could have ridden home and pretended you saw nothing. No one would have known." "I would have known," Avery said quietly. "And I would have had to live with letting you die when I could have helped. That is not the kind of man I am." Katherine felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with physical proximity. In her 3 years in Tascosa, she had met plenty of men. Most were decent enough, but few would have risked their own safety to help a stranger. This cowboy, this Avery Keaton, had not hesitated. "Tell me about the Rockingham," she said, wanting to know more about where they were going. "What kind of ranch is it?" "Cattle ranch, about 5,000 acres, Avery said. "Sam Mitchell bought the land about 10 years ago and built it up from nothing. He has maybe 20 men working for him now. It is a good outfit. Hard work, but honest. Sam treats his men fair and pays decent wages." "And you have been there a long time, 5 years, Avery said. "I came to Texas from Kansas when I was 18, hired on as a green kid who barely knew which end of a cow was which." Sam took a chance on me, taught me the work. I owe him a lot." "So you are 23 now," Katherine said, doing the math. "Hardly older than herself." 23 this past spring," Avery confirmed. "What about you? How did you end up in Tascosa?" Katherine told him about Missouri, about losing her parents, about coming west with nothing but what she could carry in a single bag, about the boarding house and the hard work and the small savings she had managed to accumulate, about her dreams of one day having her own business, her own independence. "Those savings are still in my room at the boarding house," she finished sadly. "I cannot exactly go back and collect them now." "Maybe not right away," Avery agreed, "but this will not last forever. The Garretts will slip up eventually. Men like that always do. And if they do not—" Avery was quiet for a moment. "Then we will figure something else out, but I promise you, Katherine, I will not let them kill you. You have my word on that." The certainty in his voice made Katherine believe him, even though they had known each other for barely a few hours. There was something solid about Avery Keaton, something steady and reliable. She found herself relaxing slightly against him, her exhaustion finally catching up with her now that the immediate danger had passed. "You can sleep if you need to," Avery said quietly. "I will make sure you do not fall." "I should not," Katherine protested weakly, but her eyes were already closing. "Sleep," Avery said again. "You are safe now. I have got you." Those words, spoken with such simple conviction, were the last thing Katherine heard before exhaustion pulled her under into dreamless sleep. She woke to pale dawn light painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. For a disorienting moment, she could not remember where she was or why she was moving. Then it all came rushing back: the murder, the flight, the stranger who had saved her life. She was still on the horse, still enclosed in Avery's arms. At some point during the night she had slumped sideways against him, her cheek pressed against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. "Sorry," she mumbled, trying to sit up properly. "I did not mean to fall asleep on you like that." "It is all right," Avery said, and there was a smile in his voice. "You needed the rest. We are almost there. See that rise ahead? The ranch is just beyond it." Katherine looked where he indicated and saw a low hill silhouetted against the sunrise. Her body ached in places she had not known could ache, and she was desperately thirsty, but she was alive. Thanks to the man behind her, she was alive. They crested the rise and the rocking M spread out before them. It was larger than Katherine had expected, with a sprawling ranch house, several barns and outbuildings, and extensive corrals where cattle milled about. Smoke rose from the chimney of the main house, and she could see figures moving around, starting the day's work. "That is Sam's house, the big one," Avery said, pointing. "We will go there first. He will be up having breakfast." They rode down toward the ranch, and several men stopped their work to watch them approach. Katherine was suddenly acutely aware of how she must look, her dress torn and dirty, her hair a tangled mess, riding with a man in a way that no respectable woman should. Avery seemed to sense her discomfort. "It is all right," he said quietly. "These are good men. They will not judge you." They rode up to the main house and Avery dismounted, then reached up to help Katherine down. Her legs nearly buckled when her feet hit the ground, and Avery caught her, his hands firm on her waist. "Easy," he said. "You have been in the saddle a long time. Just stand still for a moment." The front door of the house opened and a man emerged. He was in his 50s, Katherine guessed, with graying hair and a weathered face that spoke of years under the Texas sun. His eyes were sharp and assessing as they took in the scene. "Avery," he said, his voice carrying concern. "Where have you been all night? And who is this?" "Sam, this is Katherine Lawson," Avery said. "She is in trouble, bad trouble, and she needs help. Can we come inside? It is a long story." Sam Mitchell studied them both for a long moment, then nodded. "Come on, then. Martha has breakfast on the table." They followed him inside, Catherine's legs still unsteady beneath her. The house was warm and welcoming, with comfortable furniture and the smell of coffee and bacon filling the air. A woman emerged from what must be the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was around Sam's age, with kind eyes and graying brown hair pulled back in a bun. "Avery, you look half dead," she said. Then her gaze fell on Katherine and her expression shifted to one of concern. "Oh, you poor dear. Come sit down. You look like you have been through hell." Katherine found herself guided to a chair at the dining table, and moments later, Martha was pressing a cup of coffee into her hands and setting a plate of food in front of her. Sam sat down across from her while Avery remained standing, clearly too agitated to sit. "All right," Sam said. "Tell me what happened." Avery recounted the events of the previous night while Katherine sipped her coffee and tried to calm her racing heart. Hearing it all laid out like that made it seem even more surreal. She had witnessed a murder, been hunted through the darkness, been saved by a stranger. It sounded like something from a dime novel, not real life. When Avery finished, Sam was quiet for a long moment, his expression grim. "The Garretts," he finally said. "I have been expecting them to escalate. They have been getting bolder, more violent. John Mackey must have refused to cooperate with something they wanted. Probably would not approve a loan for one of their schemes," Martha said quietly. "John was an honest man. He would not have helped them launder stolen money or whatever they were planning." "What do we do?" Avery asked. "They think Katherine is dead out on the plains, but they will search at first light. When they do not find a body, they will know she got away somehow." "But they do not know where she went," Sam said thoughtfully. "And they have no reason to connect her disappearance to you or to this ranch. As far as anyone knows, you left town yesterday afternoon after picking up supplies." "Did anyone see me help her?" Avery asked. "If they did, I would already be dead," Katherine said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken since entering the house. "They would have shot you too." Avery met her eyes across the table and something passed between them, an understanding of how close they had both come to death. "So she can stay here," Martha said firmly. "At least until we figure out what to do about the Garretts." "It is not that simple," Sam said, but his tone was gentle. "If the Garretts find out we are harboring a witness, they will come after all of us. I have got 20 men and their families to think about." "I will not put anyone in danger," Katherine said quickly. "Maybe I can go somewhere else. Another town. Another territory entirely." "And live your whole life looking over your shoulder," Avery said sharply. "No, there has to be another way." "There is," Sam said slowly. "The U.S. Marshal Service has been building a case against the Garretts for months. I have been in contact with them, feeding them information. If Katherine is willing to testify, if we can keep her safe long enough for them to make arrests, this could finally end." "The marshals will not get here quickly enough," Avery objected. "It could take weeks to arrange. Where is Katherine supposed to hide in the meantime?" Sam looked between Avery and Katherine, his expression thoughtful. "I might have an idea," he said, "but it is going to require some trust and some play acting from both of you." Katherine felt her stomach clench. "What do you mean?" "If Katherine Lawson suddenly appears at the Rockingham, people will ask questions," Sam explained. "The hands, visitors, anyone who comes by. But if Avery's new wife shows up, fresh from getting married in another town, well, that is just a happy occasion. No one would think twice about it." Katherine's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. "You want us to pretend to be married?" "Just until the marshals arrive and arrest the Garretts," Sam said. "It gives you a legitimate reason to be here, a story that explains your presence." Avery was in town yesterday getting supplies before going to meet you in Amarillo where you were married. He brought you back here to start your new life. Simple, believable. Sam, that is asking a lot, Avery said, but Katherine noticed he did not sound entirely opposed to the idea. It is asking you to let a woman sleep in your cabin and to refer to her as your wife when other people are around, Sam said dryly. I think you can manage that. And Katherine, it gives you protection. The Garretts would not dare touch a married woman at a well-established ranch. There would be too many witnesses, too many questions. Martha reached over and squeezed Katherine's hand. I know it is unconventional, dear, but I think it might be the best option. You would be safe here, and Avery is a good man. He would not take advantage of the situation. Katherine looked at Avery, who was watching her with those steady dark eyes. In the morning light, she could finally see him clearly. He was tall, probably over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a lean, muscular build. His face was tanned from long hours in the sun, with strong features and dark brown hair that curled slightly at the edges. He looked exactly like what he was, a working cowboy who had spent years doing hard physical labor. And there was something else, something in the way he carried himself, a quiet strength and competence that made her feel safe. Would you be willing, she asked him directly, to pretend to be married to me? I know it is a lot to ask. Avery was quiet for a moment, then nodded. If it keeps you safe, yes. We will have to be careful, keep the story straight, but it could work. Then it is settled, Sam said, standing up. Martha, see if you have some clothes Katherine can borrow. We will need to burn that torn dress. Avery, after you eat and rest a few hours, take Katherine to your cabin and get her settled. I will put out the word that you got married and brought your bride home. Far as anyone knows, you met her through a friend last time you went to Amarillo. Over the next few hours, Katherine found herself swept up in the charade. Martha found her a simple cotton dress that fit reasonably well and helped her wash and rebraid her hair. Sam spoke to the ranch hands, spreading the story of Avery's sudden marriage. The men seemed surprised but pleased, offering congratulations when they saw Avery later. By noon, Katherine was standing outside a small cabin at the edge of the ranch compound, Avery beside her with his hand on the door latch. It is not much, he said apologetically. Just one room with a bed, a stove, a table, and chairs, but it is clean and the roof does not leak. It is perfect, Katherine said honestly. After the terror of the previous night, anywhere safe would have seemed perfect. Avery opened the door and they stepped inside. The cabin was indeed small and simple, but it was well maintained and tidy. The bed was in one corner, covered with a worn quilt. A small stove sat against one wall, with a few pots and dishes neatly stacked beside it. A rough-hewn table and 2 chairs occupied the center of the room, and there was a single window with faded curtains. I will sleep on the floor, Avery said quickly. You can have the bed. I have got extra blankets. Avery, I cannot take your bed, Katherine protested. This is your home. I am the intruder here. You are not an intruder, Avery said firmly. You are someone who needs help, and I am giving it. And I have slept on harder surfaces than a wood floor, believe me. It is not a problem. They stood there awkwardly for a moment, the reality of the situation settling over them. They were going to be living together, sharing this tiny space, pretending to be husband and wife to the outside world. It was intimate in a way that made Katherine's heart race. I should probably get back to work, Avery said finally. We are branding cattle today. Will you be all right here by yourself for a while? Yes, Katherine said. I think I might sleep, actually. I am exhausted. That is a good idea. Rest as much as you need. Avery hesitated at the door, then added, If you need anything, Martha is at the main house. She will help you. And Katherine, I want you to know you are safe here. I will not let anything happen to you." "I know," Katherine said softly. "And thank you, Avery, for everything. I owe you my life." Avery looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. "Just rest," he said, and then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Katherine sat down on the bed, her legs suddenly weak. The mattress was thin but comfortable, and the quilt smelled faintly of soap and sunshine. She lay back, intending to just rest her eyes for a moment, and within seconds was deeply asleep. She woke to the sound of the door opening and jerked upright, her heart pounding with instinctive fear. But it was just Avery, carrying a tray with food on it. "Sorry, I tried to be quiet," he said. "Martha sent dinner. She figured you probably did not want to face a bunch of strange men in the cookhouse just yet." "What time is it?" Katherine asked, disoriented. The light coming through the window was the golden color of late afternoon. "About 5, Avery said. "You have been asleep for hours. How are you feeling?" "Better," Katherine admitted. The rest had helped, though her body still ached. "Are you done working for the day?" "For now," Avery said. "I will have to go back out after dinner to check on a few things, but I wanted to make sure you ate." He set the tray on the table and Katherine joined him, suddenly ravenous. Martha had sent beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the awkwardness from earlier beginning to fade. "Tell me about yourself," Katherine said eventually. "If we are supposed to be married, I should probably know more about you than just your name." Avery smiled slightly. "Fair point. What do you want to know?" "Everything," Katherine said. "Where you are from, what your family is like, how you ended up in Texas, all of it." So Avery told her. He had been born in a small town in Kansas, the youngest of 4 children. His father had been a farmer, his mother a schoolteacher. He had grown up working the land, but his real love had always been horses. When he was 18, both his parents had died within a year of each other, his father to a farming accident and his mother to grief and pneumonia. His older siblings had inherited the farm, and Avery had decided to head west to make his own way. "I drifted for a while," he admitted. "Took odd jobs, learned cowboy work on a few different ranches. Then I ended up here at the Rockingham and realized this was where I wanted to stay. Sam and Martha, they are good people. They treat the Hands like family. It is more of a home than anywhere else I have been since Kansas." "Do you miss it?" Katherine asked. "Kansas, I mean your family." "Sometimes," Avery said. "But we were never that close, honestly. My brothers and sister, they are all older, all had their own lives by the time I was coming up. And Kansas, it was just flat farmland as far as you could see. I like it here better. The space, the open sky, the work. It suits me." "What about you?" he asked. "What were you like back in Missouri?" Katherine talked about her childhood, about parents who had encouraged her education, about dreaming of seeing more of the world than just their small town. About how their deaths had been both devastating and, in some strange way, a release. She had loved them deeply, but their expectations had sometimes felt like a cage. Coming to Texas, making her own way, had been frightening but also liberating. "I know it is probably strange to say," she admitted, "but I have been happy here despite the hard work and the loneliness sometimes. I have been building something of my own, you know, a life that belongs to just me." "That is not strange at all," Avery said. "I understand that completely." Their eyes met across the table, and Katherine felt that strange warmth in her chest again. There was something about Avery Keaton that made her feel understood in a way she rarely had before. "So what is our story?" she asked, trying to lighten the mood. "How did we supposedly meet and fall in love?" Avery thought for a moment. "How about this? You were working in Amarillo, and I was there delivering cattle to the railroad. We met at a church social, started courting through letters after I came back here. I went back to Amarillo a few weeks ago and proposed, and we got married there before I brought you home." "That sounds plausible," Katherine agreed. "How long have we supposedly been courting?" "6 months," Avery suggested. "Long enough that getting married does not seem too hasty, but not so long that people would wonder why they never heard about you before." "All right," Katherine said. 6 months of letters, a whirlwind proposal, a quick wedding. I can remember that." "There is one other thing," Avery said, and he looked uncomfortable. "If we are supposed to be newlyweds, people will expect us to act like it. Nothing inappropriate," he added quickly. "But maybe holding hands when others are around, sitting close together, that sort of thing." Katherine felt her cheeks heat. "Of course, that makes sense. We will have to be convincing." "Right," Avery said. "Convincing." They finished dinner and Avery headed back out to check on the livestock. Katherine cleaned up the dishes and then sat by the window, watching the sun set over the plains. The landscape was beautiful in its stark simplicity, all rolling grassland and endless sky. She could see why Avery loved it here. When he returned after dark, he brought more blankets and made himself a pallet on the floor near the stove. Katherine changed into a nightgown Martha had lent her, feeling awkward about undressing even though Avery had his back turned and was clearly trying to give her privacy. "Good night, Katherine," he said quietly once they had both settled. "Good night, Avery," she replied, "and thank you again for everything." "You do not have to keep thanking me," he said. "It is the right thing to do. Anyone decent would have helped." "I am not sure that is true," Katherine said softly, "but I am grateful it was you out there in the darkness." She heard Avery shift in his blankets, but he did not reply. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. Katherine lay awake longer, staring at the ceiling and trying to process everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she had been serving dinner at the boarding house, worrying about nothing more serious than whether she had enough flour for the morning biscuits. Now she was hiding from murderers, living with a man she barely knew, pretending to be his wife. And the strangest part was that despite all of it, despite the fear and uncertainty, she felt safer than she had in a long time. Because Avery Keaton had promised to protect her, and somehow she believed him absolutely. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Avery went to work each morning, and Katherine spent her days helping Martha with household chores and cooking for the ranch hands. It gave her something to do and made her feel less like a burden. Martha was warm and motherly, and seemed genuinely pleased to have another woman around. "It gets lonely being the only female in a place full of cowboys," she confided to Katherine one afternoon as they worked together in the kitchen. "It is nice to have someone to talk to." In the evenings, Avery would return to the cabin and they would share dinner, talking about their days. Katherine found herself looking forward to those quiet hours, to the sound of his voice and the stories he told about the ranch. He was intelligent and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that made her laugh. When other people were around, they played their parts as newlyweds. Avery would reach for her hand or put his arm around her waist. Katherine would lean into him, trying to look like a woman who was happily married to the man beside her. It was easier than she had expected. Avery's touch was always respectful, never presumptuous, and there was something comforting about the casual physical contact. After a week, Katherine realized something that both surprised and unsettled her. She was starting to develop feelings for Avery Keaton. Real feelings, not just gratitude or admiration. She found herself watching him when he did not notice, appreciating the way he moved, the strength in his hands, the kindness in his eyes. She thought about him when he was away working, wondered what he was doing, looked forward to when he would return. It was foolish, she told herself. This was just a temporary arrangement, a pretense to keep her safe. Once the marshals arrested the Garretts, she would leave and go back to her real life. Avery was helping her out of basic human decency, nothing more. She could not read anything deeper into his actions. But sometimes she would catch him looking at her with an expression she could not quite read, something soft and wondering. And at night, lying in the bed while he slept on the floor, she would find herself wishing things were different, that this pretend marriage was real. 2 weeks after Katherine arrived at the Rockingham, Sam received word that the marshals were finally coming. They would arrive in 3 days to make arrests, and they wanted Katherine to be ready to give a full statement. "This is almost over," Sam told her and Avery when he called them into his office. "Once the Garretts are in custody, you will be safe, Katherine. You can go back to your normal life." "That is wonderful news," Katherine said and tried to mean it. Of course it was wonderful. The Garretts would face justice for their crimes, and she would no longer have to hide. But it also meant the end of her time at the Rockingham, the end of living with Avery, the end of whatever strange connection had been growing between them. "It is good news," Avery agreed, but his voice sounded flat. "Real good." That night they were both quiet as they ate dinner. The atmosphere in the cabin felt heavy, weighted with things neither of them seemed willing to say. "I suppose I will need to figure out where to go," Katherine said finally. "I cannot go back to Tascosa. Too many bad memories now. Maybe Amarillo or perhaps somewhere else entirely." "You could stay here," Avery said abruptly, then looked away. "I mean, if you wanted. There is always work on a ranch. Martha could probably use help, and you seem to like it here." "I do like it here," Katherine said softly. "But Avery, once the Garretts are arrested, we will not need to pretend anymore. People will expect us to act like a real married couple, and we are not. It would be dishonest." "Right," Avery said. "Of course. I just thought, you have been happy here. It seemed a shame for you to leave." They fell into silence again, neither willing to address what lay beneath the surface of that conversation. The next day, Avery had to ride out to check on cattle in the far pastures and would be gone most of the day. Katherine spent the morning with Martha, but her mind kept wandering, kept returning to the realization that her time here was running out. Around noon, a group of riders approached the ranch. Katherine looked out the window of the main house and felt her blood turn to ice. She recognized one of the horses. It belonged to Wade Garrett. "Martha," she said urgently, "the Garretts are here." Martha looked out and her face went pale. "Get to the back room," she said quickly. "Stay there and stay quiet. I will handle this." Katherine slipped into the back bedroom and pressed herself against the wall near the door where she could hear, but not be seen. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She heard the front door open, heard Sam's voice greeting the visitors with carefully neutral courtesy. "Garrett," he said, "what brings you out here?" "Looking for someone," Wade Garrett's voice replied, rough and mean. "A woman from town who disappeared a couple weeks back." "Name is Katherine Lawson. You seen her?" "Cannot say I have," Sam replied calmly. "Why would she be here?" "She witnessed something she should not have," another voice said. "That would be one of Wade's brothers. Ran off into the prairie that night. We figured she died out there, but we never found a body. Starting to think maybe she got help." "And you think I would harbor a fugitive?" Sam's voice had gone cold. "Did not say fugitive," Wade replied. "Just a witness." "But if someone was helping her, hiding her, well, that would make them an accessory. Serious business, that." "I run a cattle ranch, Garrett," Sam said. "I do not involve myself in town business, and I certainly have not seen any strange women around here. Mind if we look around?" Wade asked, and it was not really a question. "Actually, I do mind," Sam said firmly. This is private property, and I do not take kindly to accusations that I am hiding criminals. You want to search my ranch, you get a warrant from the sheriff. Otherwise, I will thank you to get back on your horses and leave." There was a tense silence. Katherine held her breath, terrified that they would force their way in despite Sam's objections. "Heard one of your hands got married recently," Wade finally said, his tone suspicious. "That true?" "Avery Keaton, yes," Sam replied. "Got married in Amarillo a few weeks back and brought his bride home. What of it?" "Like to meet her," Wade said. "Just to confirm she is who she says she is." "She is not here," Martha's voice cut in. Katherine had not heard her enter the room. "She and Avery went into Tascosa this morning to buy supplies for setting up their household. Will not be back until evening." "That's so," Wade sounded skeptical. "Convenient timing." "It is called shopping, Mr. Garrett," Martha said tartly. "Newlyweds do it. Now, unless you have actual business here, I suggest you leave. I have got dinner to prepare." Another long silence, and then the sound of boots retreating. "We will be back," Wade said. "And if I find out you are lying to me, Mitchell, there will be consequences." "I am shaking in my boots," Sam said dryly. "Good day, Garrett." Katherine heard horses riding away and nearly collapsed with relief. She waited several minutes before emerging from the bedroom, her legs shaking. "That was too close," Sam said grimly. "They are suspicious. They will be watching the ranch now." "Where is Avery?" Martha asked. "He needs to know about this." "North pasture," Sam said. "I will send someone to get him." An hour later, Avery burst into the main house, his face tight with worry. "Are you all right?" he demanded, going straight to Katherine. "I am fine," she said. "They did not see me, but Avery, they are suspicious. They specifically asked about your wife." "Then we need to make them believers," Avery said decisively. He looked at Sam. "When are the marshals arriving?" "Day after tomorrow," Sam replied. "So we just need to keep up the pretense for 2 more days," Avery said. He turned back to Katherine. "I know this is asking a lot, but I think we need to go into Tascosa together, be seen in public as husband and wife. If the Garretts are watching the ranch, they need to see us acting like a normal married couple with nothing to hide." "Avery, that is too dangerous," Sam objected. "If they recognize her, they will not," Avery interrupted. "They only saw her briefly in the dark, while she was terrified and running. Now she will be calm, well-dressed, on the arm of her husband in broad daylight. People see what they expect to see, and they will expect to see my wife, not a fugitive." Katherine's mind raced. It was risky, but Avery was right. If they hid, the Garretts would only grow more suspicious. But if they brazenly appeared in town acting like they had nothing to hide, it might convince them they were wrong. "I will do it," she said. "If you think it will work, I will do it." Avery looked at her with something like admiration. "You are braver than you know," he said quietly. They made plans to ride into Tascosa the next morning. Martha found Katherine a proper dress, something a respectable married woman would wear, and helped her style her hair in a different way than she had worn it before. The effect was subtle but significant. She looked different enough that someone who had only glimpsed her briefly might not make the connection. That night in the cabin, neither of them could sleep. Avery lay on his pallet and Katherine sat up in the bed, both staring into the darkness. "Are you scared?" Avery asked quietly. "Terrified," Katherine admitted. "But I am also tired of hiding, tired of being afraid. Maybe that makes me foolish." "It makes you human," Avery said. "And for what it is worth, I will be right beside you the whole time. I will not let anything happen to you." "You keep making promises like that," Katherine said softly. "What if you cannot keep them?" "Then I will die trying," Avery said simply. "I know that probably sounds dramatic, but it is the truth. I care about what happens to you, Katherine." More than I probably should, given that we have only known each other a few weeks. Catherine's breath caught. What are you saying? There was a long pause, and then she heard Avery stand up. A moment later, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could see his face in the moonlight coming through the window. I am saying that this started as me helping someone in trouble, he said quietly. But it has become something else. You have become important to me. And the thought of you leaving once this is over, he stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I am not good with words, I am just a cowboy, but I think you understand what I am trying to say. Catherine's heart was racing. I think I might, she whispered. Because I have been feeling the same way. I keep telling myself it is just gratitude or the situation we are in, but I know it is more than that. When I think about leaving here, about not seeing you every day, it hurts. Avery reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face with one calloused hand. I know this is complicated, he said. I know we are supposed to be pretending, but Katherine, my feelings are not pretend. They are the most real thing I have felt in a long time. Mine too, Katherine breathed. And then Avery was kissing her, soft and gentle and full of restrained passion. Katherine melted into it, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, and for a long moment, there was nothing in the world but the two of them and the feelings they had been denying. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Avery rested his forehead against hers. We should probably talk about this, he said. About what it means. About what happens when this is all over. I do not want to leave, Katherine admitted. I do not want this to end, but I do not know how it could work. We are not really married and people think we are. How do we could be? Avery said quietly. Really married, I mean, if you wanted. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a few weeks, but Katherine, I have never felt like this about anyone before. And I think, maybe, you feel the same way. Katherine's mind was spinning. Was he really suggesting what she thought he was suggesting? That they turn this pretend marriage into a real one. Are you proposing to me? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. I suppose I am, Avery said, and she could hear the smile in his voice despite the seriousness of the moment. Not how I imagined doing it, sitting on your bed in the middle of the night before we walk into danger tomorrow. But then again, nothing about this has been conventional. Katherine Lawson, would you do me the honor of actually becoming my wife? Not for show, not to keep you safe, but because I am falling in love with you and I want to spend my life with you. Tears were streaming down Katherine's face, but they were happy tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Avery Keaton, I will marry you. I will actually marry you. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Katherine felt like her heart might burst from the joy of it. When they finally pulled apart, Avery climbed fully onto the bed and pulled her into his arms, holding her close. We will make this official, he promised. After the marshals come, after the Garretts are arrested, we will have a real ceremony, in front of everyone. But for now, tonight, I just want to hold you and know that you are mine and I am yours. I like the sound of that, Katherine murmured, nestled against his chest. For the first time since that terrible night when she had witnessed the murder, she felt truly at peace. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever dangers they faced, they would face them together. And afterwards, they would build a real life together, a real future. They lay together talking quietly until dawn began to lighten the sky, making plans and promises, and occasionally stopping to kiss, still marveling at this unexpected turn their lives had taken. When it was time to get ready for their trip to Tascosa, they dressed carefully, preparing themselves for the performance of their lives. Martha helped Katherine with the final touches to her appearance, arranging her hair and making sure her dress was perfect. "You look like a different person," Martha said approvingly. "Confident, happy, like a woman who just got married to a good man." "That is because I am going to be," Katherine said with a smile. "Avery proposed last night. Really proposed. We are going to make this real." Martha's face lit up with joy. "Oh, my dear, that is wonderful news. I have been hoping you two would figure out what was obvious to everyone else. You belong together." "You think so?" Katherine asked. "I know so," Martha said firmly. "I have known Avery for 5 years. I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. And you light up when he walks into a room. It is clear as day to anyone with eyes." Sam was less emotional but equally pleased when they told him their plans. "About time," was all he said, but he clapped Avery on the shoulder with genuine affection. "You are a lucky man." "I know it," Avery said, his eyes on Katherine. They rode into Tascosa mid-morning, Avery on his horse and Katherine riding behind him with her arms around his waist. It was the position of a woman comfortable with her husband, trusting and intimate. They had agreed to go straight to the general store and make their purchases in the most public, visible way possible. As they rode down the main street, Katherine fought to keep her breathing steady. Her heart was pounding with fear, but she kept her expression calm and pleasant. She was just a newlywed out shopping with her husband, nothing suspicious, nothing to notice. They dismounted in front of the general store, and Avery helped her down, his hand lingering on her waist in a gesture that was both protective and proprietary. They walked inside together, and Katherine immediately began examining fabrics and household goods while Avery spoke to the shopkeeper about supplies. Other customers came and went. An older woman congratulated them on their marriage. A rancher Avery knew asked how married life was treating him. Through it all, Katherine smiled and played her part, laughing at jokes, blushing at teasing comments about newlyweds, acting like she did not have a care in the world. And then Wade Garrett walked in. Katherine felt him before she saw him, felt the malevolent presence enter the store. She was looking at curtain fabric and forced herself not to react, not to tense up or give any sign of recognition. Avery was beside her instantly, his hand on the small of her back, a casual gesture that was also reassuring. "Keaton," Wade's voice said from behind them. "This your new wife I have been hearing about." Avery turned, keeping Katherine tucked against his side. "Wade," he said neutrally. "Yes, this is my wife Katherine. Katherine, this is Wade Garrett. He runs cattle south of here." Katherine turned and met Wade's eyes directly, forcing herself to smile politely. Up close, he was even more intimidating than she remembered, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. But she was not the terrified woman fleeing through the darkness anymore. She was Katherine Keaton, a married woman with every right to be here. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Garrett," she said, her voice steady. Wade studied her intently, and Katherine felt like he was trying to see through her skin to whatever lay beneath. She held his gaze, refusing to look away first, refusing to show fear. "You look familiar," Wade said slowly. "Have we met before?" "I do not think so," Katherine said. "I am from Amarillo originally. I have only been in Tascosa a few times and always with my husband." "Amarillo," Wade repeated. "What did you do there?" "I was a seamstress," Katherine lied smoothly. She and Avery had prepared this story. "I made dresses for the ladies in town. That is actually how Avery and I met at a church social." "Love at first sight," Avery added, pulling Katherine closer. "I knew from the moment I saw her that she was the one for me." There was something in Avery's voice, a sincerity that Katherine realized was not part of the act. He meant it. Despite the danger they were in, despite performing for Wade Garrett, what Avery was saying was true. Wade continued to study her, suspicion evident in every line of his face. "That is a real nice story," he said finally. Real convenient, too, you showing up right after that Lawson woman disappeared. I do not know what you mean, Katherine said, letting confusion show on her face. Who is the Lawson woman? Nobody important, Wade said. Just someone who got lost and probably died out on the plains, but funny timing is all I am saying. If you have got accusations to make, Garrett, make them, Avery said, his voice hardening. Otherwise, stop bothering my wife. She has done nothing to you. Just being friendly, Wade said, but there was nothing friendly about his tone. Congratulations on your marriage, Keaton. Hope it works out for you. He left the store, and Katherine had to lock her knees to keep from collapsing. Avery held her steady, his grip firm and reassuring. You did perfectly, he murmured in her ear. He is suspicious but not certain. We just need to hold on a little longer. They finished their shopping and rode back to the ranch, both of them tense and watchful the entire way. When they finally reached the safety of the Rockingham, Katherine felt like she could breathe again. That was the hardest thing I have ever done, she admitted as they unsaddled Avery's horse. Looking him in the eye, pretending I did not know who he was. You were incredible, Avery said. Braver than most men I know. You did not flinch, did not give anything away. I was so proud of you. Katherine felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. We make a good team, she said softly. We do, Avery agreed, pulling her into his arms. And tomorrow, when the marshals come, this will all be over. The Garretts will be arrested and you will be safe. And then we can start our real life together. That night, Avery did not sleep on the floor. They lay together in the narrow bed, holding each other, talking quietly about their future. They would get married properly, have a real ceremony. Maybe build a bigger cabin eventually, one with enough room for children when they came. They would work the ranch together, build a life together, grow old together. I never thought I would find this, Katherine admitted. Someone who makes me feel safe and seen and valued all at once. Someone I want to spend every day with. I never thought I would find you, Avery said, kissing her forehead. But now that I have, I am never letting you go. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Sam received word that the marshals would arrive by noon. They were bringing a full team, enough men to arrest the Garretts and anyone working with them. It was finally going to be over. Katherine spent the morning helping Martha prepare lunch for everyone. She was nervous but also excited. Once she gave her statement and the Garretts were in custody, she could stop hiding. She could live openly as Avery's wife, no longer pretending but actually being the person she had claimed to be. The marshals arrived just after noon, a group of serious men led by a tall, weathered marshal named Tom Hayes. He listened intently as Katherine recounted everything she had witnessed the night John Mackey was murdered. Avery sat beside her the whole time, holding her hand, offering silent support. That is a solid testimony, Hayes said when she finished. Combined with the other evidence we have been gathering, it should be enough to put the Garretts away for a long time, maybe even see them hang. When will you arrest them? Sam asked. Today, Hayes replied. We know where they are. We will ride in with enough force that they cannot fight their way out. With any luck, this will be over by sundown. The marshals rode out an hour later, and everyone on the ranch waited tensely for news. Katherine could not sit still, pacing the main house while Martha tried to distract her with small tasks. Avery stayed close, his presence a comfort. As the sun began to set, a rider approached. It was one of Hayes's men, and the news he brought was good. The Garretts had been arrested without incident. All three brothers were now in custody, along with two other men who had been working with them. They would be transported to the territorial prison to await trial. It is over, the marshal said. Miss Lawson, you are safe now. The threat is gone. Katherine felt Avery's arms go around her and she leaned into him, relief washing over her in waves. It was over. The nightmare was finally over. Not Miss Lawson, Avery said quietly. She is going to be Mrs. Keaton, for real this time, the marshal smiled. Then congratulations are in order. You have got yourself a brave woman, Keaton. She did not hesitate to stand up and do the right thing, even knowing the danger. Over the next few days, the story of how Avery and Katherine had helped bring down the Garretts spread through the territory. They were modest about their role, but people understood that their courage had been instrumental in ending the Garretts' reign of terror. The real Katherine Lawson emerged from behind the pretend Mrs. Keaton, and she and Avery announced their intention to actually get married. Sam and Martha insisted on hosting the wedding at the ranch. It was a simple ceremony, attended by all the hands and several families from neighboring ranches. Katherine wore a dress that Martha helped her sew, pale blue cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Avery wore his best clothes, cleaned and pressed until they looked almost new. They stood together under the wide Texas sky and spoke their vows, promising to love and honor each other for the rest of their lives. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Avery kissed Katherine with such tenderness that several of the ranch women dabbed at their eyes. Afterwards, there was a celebration with food and dancing and toasts to the happy couple. As the sun set and stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Avery and Katherine slipped away to their cabin, eager for privacy and time alone together. "Hello, Mrs. Keaton," Avery said as he closed the door behind them. "How does it feel to be actually married?" "It feels perfect," Katherine said, wrapping her arms around his neck. "It feels like coming home." "You are home," Avery murmured, pulling her close. "Right here, with me, for the rest of our lives." They made love that night as husband and wife, tender and passionate by turns, learning each other in ways they had not allowed themselves before. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the bed that was now truly theirs, talking and laughing and making plans for their future. The months that followed were the happiest of Katherine's life. She settled into her role as Avery's wife and a valued member of the Rocking M community. She helped Martha with the cooking and housekeeping, but also proved herself useful in other ways. Her neat handwriting and skill with numbers meant that Sam began asking her to help with the ranch accounts. She worked alongside Avery when she could, learning about cattle and horses and the rhythms of ranch life. Their love deepened with each passing day. They learned each other's habits and quirks, learned how to comfort each other after bad days and celebrate the good ones. They had disagreements occasionally, as all couples do, but they always talked through their problems and found solutions together. A year after their wedding, Katherine discovered she was pregnant. Avery was beside himself with joy, though he became almost comically overprotective, trying to prevent her from doing any kind of work. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," Katherine protested with exasperation when he tried to stop her from carrying a basket of laundry. "Women have been doing this for thousands of years. I will be fine." "But what if you hurt yourself?" Avery worried. "What if something happens to the baby?" "Then wrapping me in cotton will not prevent it," Katherine said gently. "I promise I will be careful, but I need to be able to live my life, Avery. I need to be able to work and move and exist without you hovering over me every second." Avery eventually relaxed, though he never quite lost the protective streak. Katherine found it endearing more often than annoying. He had been alone for so long before they found each other. The idea of family, of children, meant everything to him. Their son was born in the spring of 1878, a healthy baby with dark hair like his father and his mother's determined spirit. They named him Samuel, after Sam Mitchell, with a middle name of Thomas after Katherine's father. Sam was moved almost to tears when they told him. "You have given this old ranch new life," he said. holding the baby with surprising gentleness for such a large man. First by bringing joy to Avery, and now with this beautiful boy. Martha and I never had children of our own. Having you all here, it is the closest we have come to having a real family. You are family, Avery said firmly. You have been like a father to me since the day I arrived here, and Martha is the mother I lost too young. Our children will know you as grandparents because that is what you are to us. 2 years later, a daughter followed, born in the summer with her mother's light brown hair and her father's dark eyes. They named her Emma Rose, and she was as spirited as her brother was serious. Avery proved to be a devoted father, patient and loving, spending every spare moment with his children. Katherine sometimes thought back to that terrified woman fleeing across the dark plains, running for her life with no hope and no future. She thought about how Avery had appeared out of the darkness and offered her safety, offered her trust, offered her a chance, and how that one act of kindness had led to this, a life richer and fuller than she ever could have imagined. The Garretts were tried and convicted of murder and a host of other crimes. Wade and one of his brothers were hanged. The third brother was sentenced to life in prison. Justice had been served, and the territory was safer for it. Katherine occasionally went back to Tascosa, no longer afraid of the town where her old life had ended and her new one had begun. She visited the boarding house where she used to work, catching up with old friends who marveled at how happy she looked. She would tell them about the ranch, about Avery and the children, about the life she was building. 5 years after their wedding, Sam decided to retire and offered to sell the Rocking M to Avery and Katherine, at a price they could afford through years of careful saving and hard work. It was a momentous decision, but also felt inevitable. The ranch had been their home for so long, and they had worked so hard to help it thrive. This place was built on dreams, Sam told them the day he handed over the deed. My dreams first and now yours. I know you will take good care of it. I know you will build something lasting here, something to pass down to those beautiful children of yours. And they did. Over the years, Avery and Katherine grew the Rocking M into one of the most successful ranches in the territory. They earned a reputation for fair dealing and honest work. They employed good men and treated them well, creating a community rather than just a business. More children came, 3 more in total, until the little cabin had to be replaced with a proper house with enough bedrooms for everyone. The house was built on a rise overlooking the plains, with a wide porch where Katherine and Avery would sit in the evenings and watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Their children grew up strong and capable, learning to ride and rope and work the land. They went to school in Tascosa, getting educations that both Katherine and Avery insisted were important. The eldest, Samuel, showed an aptitude for ranching and business that made it clear he would take over the operation one day. Emma became a teacher, working in Tascosa and bringing education to children throughout the territory. The younger children each found their own paths, but all of them stayed close to home, understanding that the Rocking M was not just a ranch but a legacy. As the years passed and Texas changed around them, as the frontier slowly became more settled and civilized, Katherine and Avery remained constants in each other's lives. Their love never dimmed but rather deepened and matured, growing richer with shared experiences and weathered storms. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a celebration that brought together people from all across the territory. There was food and music and dancing, and speeches about how Avery and Katherine had not just built a successful ranch, but had created a community, a place where people looked out for each other and helped those in need. You two are proof that good things can come from the darkest moments, one old-timer said in his toast. You found each other in the midst of violence and fear, and you built something beautiful out of it. That is a testament to the strength of your characters and the power of love. Later that night, when the guests had gone home and the house was quiet, Katherine and Avery sat on their porch watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Do you ever think about that night? Katherine asked quietly. The night we met, sometimes, Avery admitted. I think about how close you came to dying. How if I had left town 5 minutes earlier or taken a different road, I never would have found you. It terrifies me, thinking how easily we might never have met. But we did meet, Katherine said, taking his hand. You found me in the darkness and you saved me. And then you gave me a life I never could have imagined. You gave me love and safety and a family and a home. You gave me everything. You gave me the same, Avery said, bringing her hand to his lips. Before you, I was just drifting. Working hard but not really living, not really connecting with anyone or anything. You made me understand what it means to have someone to come home to, someone to build a life with. You made me whole. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands clasped, watching the familiar landscape fade into shadow as night fell. 25 years, Katherine mused, and it feels like both a lifetime and no time at all. Here is to 25 more, Avery said. And to growing old together on this porch, watching our grandchildren play in the yard. I like the sound of that, Katherine said, leaning into him, and that was exactly what they did. The years continued to pass, bringing grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. The Rocking M prospered under Samuel's management, with guidance from his still sharp father. Katherine remained active in the community, known for her kindness and wisdom. She and Martha, who lived to a remarkable old age, remained close friends until Martha's passing in 1895. Avery and Katherine grew old together, their bodies aging but their love remaining constant. They still held hands when they walked. They still kissed each other goodbye when Avery rode out to check the herd. They still talked for hours on their porch in the evenings, sharing thoughts and memories and dreams. When they had been married for 40 years, their children insisted on another celebration. It was a grand affair, with family traveling from as far away as Denver and San Antonio. There were now 12 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, a whole dynasty descended from 2 people who had found each other in the darkness of a Texas night so long ago. Tell us the story, the children clamored. Tell us how you met. Katherine and Avery exchanged glances, smiling at the familiar request. Over the years, the story of their meeting had become almost legendary in the family, a tale of danger and rescue and love against all odds. Your grandmother was running for her life, Avery began, his voice still strong despite his years. And I was just a cowboy who happened to be in the right place at the right time. He saved me, Katherine continued, picking up the thread of the story. He appeared out of the darkness and said, "If you trust me, I can guide you." And I did trust him, even though I had no reason to. Something in his voice told me he was someone I could depend on. And he was right, one of the grandchildren said excitedly. They had heard this story dozens of times but never tired of it. He was right, Katherine confirmed, looking at Avery with all the love of 4 decades together shining in her eyes. He guided me to safety, and then he guided me to a life I never imagined I could have. He showed me what it means to be truly loved and valued. He gave me a family and a home and a purpose. What your grandmother is not saying, Avery added, is that she saved me just as much as I saved her. I was alone before I met her, lonely even when surrounded by people. She filled a space in my heart I did not even know was empty. She made me a better man. The celebration continued late into the night, with music and laughter, and the kind of joy that only comes from being surrounded by people you love. As midnight approached and the party finally began to wind down, Avery and Katherine escaped to their porch, seeking a few moments of quiet together. 40 years, Katherine said, echoing their conversation from 15 years earlier. Can you believe it has been that long? Feels like yesterday and forever ago all at once, Avery replied, pulling her close. They stood together in the moonlight, the same moon that had guided them across the dark plains all those years ago. The ranch was quiet around them, peaceful and prosperous, a testament to everything they had built together. I love you, Katherine Keaton, Avery said softly. I have loved you from the moment you trusted me in that darkness. I will love you until the day I die and beyond. I love you too, Avery Keaton, Katherine replied, tears of happiness sliding down her weathered cheeks. You are my guiding star, my safe harbor, my home. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for loving me. They stood together until the moon set, and the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. Two people who had found each other in the darkness and built a life together in the light. Two people who proved that love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, and that trust given to the right person can change everything. As dawn began to paint the eastern sky, they finally went inside to their bed, the same bed they had shared for 4 decades. They fell asleep in each other's arms as they had every night of their married life, secure in the knowledge that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. The years continued their inexorable march. Avery and Katherine passed their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by a family that had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. There were now great-great-grandchildren, the 6th generation descended from that chance meeting in the darkness. They had lived to see the turn of the century, had witnessed Texas transform from a wild frontier into a modern state. They had seen railroads cross the land where once only cattle drives traveled. They had seen towns grow into cities and the old ways gradually give way to the new. Through it all, they remained rooted at the rocking M, anchors in a changing world. The ranch continued to thrive, managed now primarily by their grandchildren while Avery and Katherine offered advice and enjoyed a well-earned rest. Avery passed away peacefully in his sleep on a warm spring night in 1908, 83 years old and surrounded by love. He simply went to sleep with Katherine in his arms and did not wake up. It was, everyone agreed, exactly how he would have wanted to go. Katherine grieved deeply, but without despair. They had been blessed with 60 years together, more than most couples could ever hope for. She had loved him with everything she had, and she knew without doubt that he had loved her the same way. There were no regrets, no words left unsaid, no moments wasted. She lived another 5 years, remaining sharp and engaged right up until the end. She spent her final years surrounded by her enormous family, telling stories of the old days, and passing down the wisdom she had accumulated over a long and remarkable life. When she died in the summer of 1913 at the age of 87, she was buried next to Avery on a rise overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their headstones were simple but meaningful, engraved with their names and dates and one simple phrase that summed up their entire life together. Trust given, love found, life shared. The rocking M continued for generations after them, passed down through their descendants who never forgot the story of how it all began. The tale of the woman who fled across the dark plains and the cowboy who said, "If you trust me, I can guide you," became a family legend, told and retold to each new generation. It was a story about courage in the face of fear, about trust given when there was no reason to trust, about love found in the most unexpected circumstances. It was a story about building something lasting from moments of terror, about turning darkness into light. Most of all, it was a story about two people who found each other when they both needed saving, and who spent the rest of their lives grateful for that chance meeting under a moonless Texas sky. Two people who proved that sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead to the very best, if we are brave enough to trust when a voice in the darkness offers to guide us home. Their great-great-grandchildren still live on the rocking M today, still working the land their ancestors claimed and cultivated. On quiet nights, when the wind blows across the plains and the stars shine bright overhead, they like to imagine they can feel the presence of Avery and Katherine, still together, still watching over the legacy they created. And on the porch of the old house, rebuilt several times over the years, but always in the same spot where Avery and Katherine used to sit, young couples still gather to watch the sunset and make promises to each other about the future. The Rocking M has become a place synonymous with lasting love, with partnerships built on trust and respect, with the belief that two people truly committed to each other can weather any storm. It all started with a woman running for her life and a cowboy who chose to help her. Everything else, all the love and joy and family and legacy that followed, grew from that one moment of trust in the darkness, from the simple promise, "If you trust me, I can guide you." Katherine did trust him, and Avery guided her not just to safety but to a life beyond her wildest dreams. Together they built something that lasted long after they were gone, something that still stands today as a testament to the power of love and the importance of choosing to help when someone is in need. Their story, like the land they loved, endures. A tale of the Wild West that was not about gunfights and outlaws, but about something quieter and more powerful. Two souls finding each other in the darkness and choosing to walk through life together, hand in hand, from that moment forward into eternity.